he's the one who's behind the scenes with stuff like that, and he helped me write Friday. I mean, DJ Pooh, he helped LL do Going Back to Cali. We're all fans of Pooh.
In 1995, a $3.5 million comedy about two guys sitting on a porch changed cinema forever. It launched careers, created phrases that lasted decades, and proved that you don't need explosions or car chases to make a classic. Just talent, timing, and truth. But Friday almost never happened the way we know it. The lead actor bombed his first audition. The director was terrified his star would ruin the film. A future Oscar nominee made his uncredited debut in a flashback scene. And the whole production was shot in just 20 days with a budget smaller than most music videos. These aren't internet myths. These are documented facts from cast interviews, director commentaries, and behind-the-scenes footage that completely change how you see this hood classic. Some secrets were deliberately hidden from audiences. Others have been forgotten over time. But all of them reveal a production that was as resourceful and creative as it was groundbreaking. How much do you really know about Friday? Let's find out. Fact 1. The film was shot in just 20 days. When Ice Cube revealed the production timeline for Friday, even industry veterans were shocked. 20 days. That's less than 3 weeks to film an entire feature-length movie that would go on to make over $27 million at the box office. For context, most Hollywood comedies take 30 to 50 days to shoot. Big-budget productions can run for months. But Friday? Ice Cube himself confirmed it on social media. The film cost $2.3 to $3.5 million to make and was shot in 20 days.
20 days.
What?
Wow. 20 days, 4 weeks. We film 5 days a week.
Think about what that means logistically. Every actor had to show up prepared. Every scene had to work quickly. There was no time for extensive reshoots or perfectionism. Director F. Gary Gray had to capture the magic fast, because the clock was ticking and the money was limited. This brutal schedule actually worked in the film's favor. The urgency created energy. The actors stayed sharp. The improvisations felt spontaneous because they were spontaneous. Nobody had time for 20 takes of the same line. What you see on screen is raw talent captured under pressure. Chris Tucker later said that the tight production schedule forced everyone to bring their A-game every single day. You couldn't phone it in. You couldn't show up unprepared. 20 days meant 20 days of absolute focus. And here's what makes this even more impressive. Despite the compressed timeline, Friday doesn't feel rushed. It doesn't look cheap. It feels lived in, authentic, and carefully crafted. That's the result of a director who knew exactly what he wanted and a cast that delivered under impossible time constraints. Can you imagine pulling off a cultural phenomenon in 20 days? Most people need longer than that to plan a wedding, but the timeline wasn't the only constraint the production faced. The budget created even more challenges and creative solutions. Fact 2. Ice Cube and DJ Pooh almost funded it with credit cards. Before New Line Cinema agreed to finance Friday, Ice Cube and DJ Pooh had a backup plan that sounds absolutely insane. They were prepared to max out credit cards to make the movie themselves.
When I found out that you wrote Friday, I was like, that's insane. That's incredible.
Yeah, me and DJ Pooh.
This wasn't a joke. They were dead serious. Ice Cube revealed in a 2020 interview on Drink Champs that he and DJ Pooh were directly inspired by Robert Townsend, who financed Hollywood Shuffle by charging everything to credit cards. Townsend had literally gone into debt to make his film, and it worked. Hollywood Shuffle became a cult classic that launched his career. Cube and Pooh saw that and thought, we can do the same thing. They were also inspired by Keenen Ivory Wayans and his show In Living Color, which proved that black creators could produce their own successful content without waiting for Hollywood's permission. These inspirations pushed them to write the Friday script in 1994, just 1 year before the film's release. The plan was simple. If no studio would fund their vision, they'd fund it themselves. Ice Cube even bought a computer specifically to write the screenplay after meeting with the late John Singleton, who directed Boys N, The Hood. Singleton encouraged him to put his stories on paper. Fortunately, New Line Cinema stepped in once they read the script. But here's the important part. New Line only agreed to finance the film if Cube and Pooh accepted 2 conditions. First, DJ Pooh couldn't play Smokey. The role needed a more experienced comedian. Second, the budget would be minimal. Cube and Pooh agreed to both conditions. They knew that getting the film made mattered more than controlling every detail. So they cast an unknown comedian for Smokey and worked within the tight budget constraints. But imagine if New Line had said no. Imagine Ice Cube and DJ Pooh drowning in credit card debt, screening Friday at independent theaters, hoping to recoup their money. That alternate reality almost happened. Instead, we got a studio-backed film that still felt independent, authentic, and completely true to their original vision. They compromised on budget and casting, but never on the story's soul. That authenticity started with the script itself, which was far more personal than most people realize. Fact 3. The script is mostly autobiographical. Friday isn't just entertainment, it's testimony. Ice Cube has repeatedly stated that the majority of the film is based on real events from his life and DJ Pooh's life growing up in South Central Los Angeles.
What's Ice Cube's favorite Friday movie?
The first one, of course.
Okay.
That's the best one. But I think
it's
Friday
two, but go
After
ahead.
Next.
The character Craig being fired on his day off? That happened to Ice Cube's cousin, who worked as a delivery driver. His supervisor accused him of something he didn't do, and he lost his job on what was supposed to be his day off. That injustice stuck with Cube for years, so he wrote it into the script. The character Smokey and his drug-dealing storyline? That's based on DJ Pooh's own history as a small-time dealer. Pooh has openly discussed how he drew from those experiences to create Smokey's predicament. The desperation of smoking your own product, owing money you don't have, facing consequences you can't escape. Even smaller moments came from real life. The neighborhood characters, the porch conversations, the way people move through the day with no particular agenda. All of that reflects what Cube and Pooh actually experienced growing up. Ice Cube explained the film's purpose clearly. We had fun in the hood. We used to trip off the neighborhood. Before Friday, films like Boys in the Hood and Colors portrayed South Central LA as exclusively violent and menacing. Those films were important and necessary, but they didn't show the full picture. Friday was Cube and Pooh's response. They wanted to show the other side, the laughter, the friendships, the small joys, the absurd moments that made life bearable even in difficult circumstances. Not every day in the hood involved drive-bys and tragedy. Some days were just Friday, hanging out, talking trash, watching the neighborhood unfold. This commitment to authenticity extended to every aspect of production. Ice Cube insisted on filming in actual South Central neighborhoods, not on Hollywood sets. He wanted the houses, the streets, the atmosphere to be real because the story was real. That realness is why Friday resonates 3 decades later. People recognize the truth in it. They've lived versions of those Fridays, maybe not in South Central LA, but in their own neighborhoods, with their own friends, dealing with their own versions of Big Worm and Debo. But turning that authentic vision into a film required finding the right director, and Cube's choice was deliberate. Fact 4. F. Gary Gray was terrified Ice Cube would ruin the film. F. Gary Gray was a music video director when Ice Cube offered him Friday. He'd worked with Cube before on videos and respected his vision. But when Cube told him he wanted to star in a comedy, Gray's reaction was honest. That scared the shit out of me. Why? Because in 1995, Ice Cube was the toughest man in America. Think about Ice Cube's image at that time. He'd been in NWA, rapping "Fuck the Police."
We had a song called "Fuck the Police." You know, that was the song.
So the police didn't like that song?
No, they didn't. For some reason. I thought it was such a catchy number.
He delivered hard-hitting social commentary in films like Boys in the Hood and Higher Learning. His entire persona was built on intensity, anger, and confrontation. He was the guy who made white America uncomfortable. Comedy? Nobody could picture it. Gray explained his fear perfectly. When you take someone who delivers hard-hitting social issues in hardcore gangsta rap and who has a hardcore view on politics, you would never think comedy. This wasn't just Gray's concern. It was everyone's concern. Would audiences buy Ice Cube as a light-hearted, unemployed slacker? Would they laugh with him or at him? Would the whole experiment backfire and damage Cube's credibility? Gray admitted all these doubts. But he also recognized something crucial. Ice Cube and he came from similar backgrounds. Gray grew up in the same kind of neighborhood that Friday portrayed. He understood the tone Cube was going for because he'd lived it. That shared experience gave Gray confidence. He knew that authenticity would sell the comedy. If Cube could tap into real moments, the kind of humor that actually exists in those neighborhoods, audiences would respond. And Gray was right. Ice Cube's performance as Craig is subtle, natural, and genuinely funny. He plays the straight man perfectly, letting Chris Tucker's Smokey bounce off him. He doesn't try too hard. He doesn't mug for the camera. He just is. That restraint came from understanding the character. Craig isn't a comedian. He's a regular guy dealing with an absurd situation. Ice Cube played him that way, and it worked brilliantly. Gray's fear turned into respect, and eventually into a long-term collaboration. He went on to direct Next Friday and Friday After Next, and later directed Straight Outta Compton, telling Ice Cube's origin story with NWA. But before any of that could happen, they needed to cast Smokey, and that process became its own drama. Fact 5. Chris Tucker bombed his first audition. Imagine Friday without Chris Tucker as Smokey. It's almost impossible, right? Tucker's high-pitched voice, his mannerisms, his energy. They define the film. But Chris Tucker almost didn't get the role because his first audition was, in the words of casting director Kim Harden, horrible. Tucker came in fresh off a comedy tour. He hadn't read the script. He didn't know he could improvise during auditions. He thought he had to stick strictly to the dialogue. The result was stiff, uncomfortable, and completely wrong for Smokey. Harden could have ended it there. Most casting directors would have. You were horrible. Next. But Harden saw something beneath the mess. She knew Tucker had talent. She'd hired him for a small role in another film called The Walking Dead. She believed he could do better, so she did something unusual. She gave him another chance. I knew Chris could do better, Harden explained. When a person isn't prepared, they can't do their best job. I allowed him to prepare and come back. Tucker went home knowing he'd blown it, but his friends and future co-stars Angela Means, who plays Felicia, and Faison Love, Big Worm, refused to let him fail. Angela Means tells the story beautifully. Tucker contacted her looking for an acting coach. Instead, she invited him over for dinner. She made a big pot of spaghetti. Tucker and Faison Love came over and they worked through the script together. Means coached Tucker, helping him understand Smokey's rhythm and energy. They improvised. They played with the dialogue. They found the character. According to Means, by the time that spaghetti was gone, Chris was Smokey. Tucker went back for his second audition and nailed it. Director F. Gary Gray later said Tucker's ability to improvise was unmatched. That's what got him the role. Not the first audition, but the second one. Fueled by spaghetti and friendship, this story reveals something important about Friday's production. The cast genuinely supported each other. Means and Love helped Tucker because they were all in it together. They wanted the best film possible, even if it meant coaching their competition. And thank God they did. Chris Tucker's Smokey became a star-making performance. It launched him into Rush Hour, The Fifth Element, and a career as one of Hollywood's highest-paid actors.
Chris Tucker had a problem. He films this movie called Rush Hour, and suddenly he becomes the highest-paid actor in Hollywood.
But Tucker almost lost the role to some serious competition. Fact 6. Chris Rock and Tommy Davidson were considered for Smokey. Before Chris Tucker was cast, New Line Cinema was considering two much bigger names for Smokey: Chris Rock and Tommy Davidson. Both were established comedians with significant profiles. Chris Rock was already famous from Saturday Night Live. Tommy Davidson was a star on In Living Color.
TV film star and legendary comedian Tommy Davidson continues to kill it on stages across the country.
Either one would have been the safe choice: experienced, proven, bankable. But Ice Cube and DJ Pooh wanted Tucker. They'd seen him on Def Comedy Jam and immediately knew he had the energy they needed. Tucker was raw, unpolished, and hungry. He had something the established comedians didn't: desperation to prove himself. F. Gary Gray fought for Tucker over the bigger names. According to reports, Gray believed Tucker had an innate star quality that would ignite on screen. New Line was skeptical. They'd agreed to finance Friday on the condition that Smokey be played by an experienced comedian. Tucker barely qualified. He'd done House Party 3 and some stand-up, but he wasn't Chris Rock. Eventually, Cube and Gray convinced the studio. Their instinct proved correct. Tucker's Smokey is iconic in ways Chris Rock or Tommy Davidson's version likely wouldn't have been. Not because Rock or Davidson aren't talented, they absolutely are, but because Tucker brought a specific manic energy that was perfect for the role. Interestingly, Tucker's friend Faison Love revealed that Tucker was initially frustrated by losing roles to other comedians. He almost didn't take Friday seriously because he was tired of auditioning and failing. Thank God he changed his mind. Fact 7. Bye Felicia wasn't in the script. One of the most famous lines in Friday, the line that spawned countless memes and became part of everyday language, wasn't even written in the original screenplay. Bye Felicia? Angela Means, who plays Felicia, confirmed in multiple interviews that the line was improvised. Ice Cube came up with it on the spot based on how Means was playing the scene. Felicia comes to Craig's house trying to borrow something after already bugging Smokey for his car. She's being annoying, persistent, inconsequential. Cube needed a dismissal that was casual, cutting, and final. So he said, "Bye, Felicia."
Bye, Felicia.
Means explained. Cube uttered the words based off what I gave him as an actor. I don't think that was actually in the script. That's what the vibe was, and we went with it. Director F. Gary Gray kept the take. The line stayed in the film, and 20 years later, it became a cultural phenomenon. Ice Cube himself has expressed amazement at the line's staying power. In a 2015 interview, he said, "It's real strange how this little kind of throwaway line in the movie has become this phenomenon. Whenever somebody's annoying you, hit them with a 'Bye Felicia.' They'll know what you're talking about. A throwaway line. That's all it was supposed to be. Now it's in dictionaries, used by celebrities, referenced in other movies, turned into merchandise. This is the magic of Friday. The improvisations, the natural moments, the authentic reactions. So much of what makes the film special wasn't planned. It was discovered, but not every moment was improvised. Some were carefully crafted, like the costume choices. Fact 8. Craig's outfit connected to boys, and the hood and straight outta Compton. Pay close attention to Craig's clothing at the beginning and end of Friday. The outfit he wears, cut-off khaki shorts, dark green t-shirt, white socks, and dark slippers, is the exact same outfit Ice Cube's character, Doughboy, wore at the end of Boys and the Hood. This wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate, visual callback. Ice Cube was connecting his characters across films. Doughboy's story ended with him sitting alone, soon to be murdered. Craig's story begins with him sitting on the porch, unemployed, but alive. It's a subtle suggestion of continuity, of survival, of what happens after tragedy. But that's not the only costume connection. The outfit Craig wears for most of Friday, dark pants, black and white plaid long-sleeve shirt, and black Nikes, was later worn by Ice Cube's son, O'Shea Jackson Jr., in Straight Outta Compton, where he played his father. Think about that circle. Ice Cube wears an outfit in Friday. 20 years later, his son wears the same outfit playing a younger version of Ice Cube in a biopic about NWA. These costume choices create a visual through-line across Ice Cube's career, from Boys and the Hood to Friday to Straight Outta Compton. It's a quiet way of saying, these stories are all connected. This is one man's journey through different eras, different roles, different versions of himself. Most viewers never notice these details, but they add depth for those who do. And speaking of details most people miss, a future Oscar nominee appeared in Friday in an uncredited role. Fact 9. Michael Clarke Duncan's film debut. In a brief black and white flashback scene, two men appear as background extras during a confrontation about Debo stealing Red's bike. One of those men was Michael Clarke Duncan making his uncredited film debut. At the time, Duncan was a complete unknown. He was working as a bodyguard and doing odd jobs in Los Angeles, trying to break into acting. Friday gave him his first screen appearance. 4 years later, Duncan would star opposite Tom Hanks in The Green Mile as John Coffey, a performance that earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor.
If I were John Coffey and I had to express
what I feel for you right now.
He went on to appear in Armageddon, Sin City, and dozens of other major films. But it all started with Friday, an uncredited appearance in a flashback that most viewers never even notice. This is one of Friday's hidden legacies. It gave opportunities to people who would become major stars. Chris Tucker, obviously. Regina King, who went on to win an Oscar. Even F. Gary Gray, who became one of Hollywood's top directors. Friday was a launching pad, and Duncan's brief appearance is a reminder that you never know who's in the background, waiting for their moment. But Duncan wasn't the only familiar face hiding in Friday's cast. Fact 10. The director and a legend made cameos. F. Gary Gray makes a cameo in Friday as a store employee. During the scene where Izal, Anthony Johnson, tries to rob the liquor store and slips and falls, Gray is visible as one of the workers.
Man, get your punk ass up. It ain't even wet over here.
It's brief, barely noticeable, but it's part of the filmmaking tradition of directors appearing in their own work. Gray was already behind the camera. Why not step in front of it for a moment? But there's another cameo that's far more significant. LaWanda Page appears as a Jehovah's Witness that Craig rudely shuts the door on. For younger viewers, that might not mean anything. But for anyone who remembers the 1970s sitcom Sanford and Son, LaWanda Page was a legend. She played Aunt Esther, one of television's most iconic characters. By 1995, Page was in her 70s and semi-retired. Her appearance in Friday was a nod to comedy history, a passing of the torch from one generation of black comedians to the next. These small moments enrich Friday. They connect it to a larger tradition, to television history, to the community of black performers supporting each other across decades. Fact 11. Chris Tucker never returned because of money and faith. Friday spawned 2 sequels, Next Friday, 2000, and Friday After Next, 2002. Chris Tucker didn't appear in either one. For years, rumors swirled about why. Some said he and Ice Cube had beef. Others claimed contractual disputes. The truth is more complex and more personal. Tucker's absence was due to 2 factors: his evolving career goals and his religious convictions. After Friday, Tucker's career exploded. Rush Hour made him one of Hollywood's highest-paid actors. He was pulling in $20 million per film. Returning to Friday for a sequel would have been a step backward financially, especially since the budget for Next Friday was still relatively small. But money wasn't the only reason. Tucker had become increasingly religious and selective about his roles. He didn't want to play characters that glorified drug use or destructive behavior. Smokey smokes weed throughout Friday.
Man, ain't nothing wrong with smoking weed. Weed is from the earth. God put this here for me and you.
That was the character's whole identity. Tucker has stated he's not opposed to returning if the story is right. Ice Cube has floated ideas about Smokey running a rehab center where he would be smoking all the weed. A joke, but also a way to bring the character back. So far, it hasn't happened. Tucker's absence in the sequels is one reason they don't have the same magic as the original. The chemistry between Craig and Smokey was irreplaceable, but Tucker's decision reveals something important about him. He valued his principles over money. In Hollywood, that's rare. Fact 12. 3 cast members have passed away, delaying the 4th film. Ice Cube has been trying to make a 4th Friday film called Last Friday for years. The biggest obstacle isn't budget or studio interest, it's tragedy. 3 major cast members have passed away. John Witherspoon, 2019, Tommy Tiny Lister Jr., 2020, and Anthony A.J. Johnson, 2021. Witherspoon played Craig's father. Lister played Debo. Johnson played Easel. All 3 were essential to Friday's universe. Their performances defined the film's comedic tone and emotional core. Ice Cube has spoken publicly about how these losses have complicated Last Friday. In interviews, he's expressed frustration. John Witherspoon passed away. Tommy Tiny Lister Jr. passed away. Anthony A.J. Johnson passed away. I'm like, man, we keep losing people, and y'all keep dicking around, not doing the movie the way it needed to be done. There's pain in that statement. Cube wanted to get the band back together one more time. He wanted to give these actors another moment in the spotlight, but Hollywood moved too slowly, and time ran out. John Witherspoon died of a heart attack at 77. Tommy Lister died at 62 from complications related to COVID-19. Jay Johnson died at 55 from unknown causes. Each loss diminished the possibility of a proper Friday reunion. You can't replace those actors. You can't recreate their chemistry. Any last Friday that gets made will be missing crucial pieces. This is the bittersweet reality of cult classics. The people who made them don't last forever. Time moves, life ends, and eventually, reunion becomes impossible. But their performances live on in Friday, a film that captured a moment, a neighborhood, a feeling that still resonates 3 decades later. 12 facts about a film that cost less than $3.5 million and took only 20 days to shoot. A script based on real life. A director terrified his star would fail. An actor who bombed his first audition, then got coached over spaghetti. Competition from Chris Rock and Tommy Davidson. An improvised line that became a cultural phenomenon. Costume callbacks connecting 3 films. A future Oscar nominee's uncredited debut. Director and legend cameos. An absent star who chose principles over paychecks. And beloved cast members who are now gone. Each fact reveals something about what it took to make Friday. The hustle, the improvisation, the community support, the authentic vision that refused to compromise. This wasn't a studio calculation. This was artists betting on themselves, drawing from their own lives, and trusting that audiences would respond to truth. 30 years later, Friday remains a hood classic, not because it had a big budget or famous stars, but because it had heart, humor, and honesty. Now that you know these secrets, will you watch Friday differently? Will you notice Michael Clark Duncan in the background? Will you think about Chris Tucker's second audition? Will you appreciate the 20-day miracle that created a cultural phenomenon? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Which fact surprised you most? What's your favorite Friday quote? If this video changed how you see Friday, share it with someone who needs to know. Let's keep this conversation going, because Friday deserves more than passive rewatching. It deserves appreciation for everything that went into creating it. The struggle, the collaboration, the improvisation, the magic captured under impossible constraints. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more deep dives into classic films. And remember, you got knocked the fuck out.